We begin in New South Wales, where evacuation orders are in place for low-lying areas around Picton, southwest of Sydney this morning. Widespread rain has hit the state with multiple flood warnings and power outages, while the SES has carried out more than 60 flood rescues.
Some parts of the state have recorded rainfall totals of more than 200 millimetres since yesterday, and there's more on the way. So let's go to Emma for all the details.
Thanks, Bridget. Well, New South Wales, of course, is the focus. We have a severe weather warning for heavy rainfall for the Illawarra and surrounds. Flood warnings are in place, as well as a road weather alert for Sydney. To find out more, we are joined by Senior Meteorologist Angus Hines from the Bureau of Meteorology. Angus, good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you.
OK, tell us, what have we seen so far? Because these areas have been absolutely drenched. More is on the way too. But what have we seen in the gauges?
Yeah, absolutely drenched is right. We've had a band of rain across eastern New South Wales and it just sat there all night and it brought rain to many areas. Parts of Sydney saw heavy rain. Down in the south coast we saw some significant rain, but the spot that was hardest hit of all was around the Illawarra area, particularly around Wollongong, where we did see about 200 millimetres of rain, most of which fell through the evening and overnight last night. It was just persistent rain in Wollongong. Port Kembla seeing over 200 millimetres hour after hour of wet weather. And as we've seen this morning, that started to spit up some heavy rain impacts. The rivers have risen really quickly. There's been areas of flooding across roads and road closures, areas of inundation into properties as well.
So what can we expect today? Because these weather warnings, they were put out early yesterday. They changed a little bit as the day went on, but we've still got weather warnings for the area. So what's in store?
Yeah, still got that heavy rain warning in place covering all of the Illawarra, some southern parts of the Sydney metro area too, as well as parts of the tablelands and the south coast. Now, the rain in those areas that were hardest hit overnight last night is expected to continue for the next few hours, but by around the middle of the day today, we will see that band of rain moving south and weakening back slightly. So for the second half of the day today, the focal point of rain will become the south coast of New South Wales, while those spots around the Illawarra and Sydney might see a further shower or two this afternoon, but the intensity and the persistence of the rain should dial right back. So a few more hours of wet weather in those places before some drier and brighter conditions on the way.
How long will those bright and dry conditions last for though? Because we've got a few other things happening off the coast.
Yeah, well, look, for the rest of the, once we move into the long weekend, there will still be some rain around southern parts of New South Wales, but those areas that have already had 100, 200 millimetres of rain, they should be seeing mostly dry weather throughout the long weekend. So it will be a real relief for those places to get some conditions that can help to dry out the absolute mountain of rain that they've seen over the past about 36 hours now since that wet weather kicked off yesterday, or in some places even the evening before. So some dry weather on the way for New South Wales. Other places will be picking up some rain across the long weekend, but it will be different spots around the country.
Angus, I want to talk to you about WA, because that's been hit pretty hard as well, including some flash flooding, I understand, in Perth and surrounds. What's happened over there?
Yeah, there was a cold front that moved across Western Australia yesterday afternoon and evening, and it did bring a really punchy, powerful change in the weather. It brought some short but intense bursts of rainfall, which, as you say, did lead to areas of flash flooding. I think in and around Perth, it was about 40 millimetres of rain that fell in pretty quick time, but some areas not too far away from Perth had up to about 75 millimetres of rain. So it was a short, sharp burst of weather. There were some really strong wind gusts as well. We did see wind gusts of around about 90 kilometres an hour for the west coast of the country, and that all fell through yesterday evening and overnight. Now the rain will have cleared out of Perth by this morning and much of southwestern WA, but it is going to linger around the central west of the state, and that's spots like Geraldton, a little bit north up the coastline from where Perth sits. Going to be seeing rain for the rest of the day today and probably most of the day tomorrow as well.
And Angus, more is on the way too, I understand. We've got more cold fronts, we've got strong winds, swells as well.
That's right, yeah, we've really seen that pattern set up across southern Western Australia, where we're just seeing cold fronts fly through with real regularity at the moment. So they had the one last night that brought that punchy change in the weather. There's another cold front onto that same part of the country, which is looking to arrive early on Sunday morning. That will bring another spell of rain, another surge of strong winds, and some potentially dangerous conditions along the coast. It will be the combination of some very big waves, 6 to 7 metre waves are possible, as well as some really high tides, which we're seeing at the moment. So coastal areas could see some pretty rough conditions in the southwest, and then a few days later, we are going to see much of that weather transition to eastern parts of the country as well. So as we move into next week, perhaps around Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, we'll be seeing the cold, wet and windy conditions across southeastern Australia too.
It is a very, very busy time for everyone there. Angus Hines, as always, thanks for joining us on News Breakfast.
Thank you.
So team, things are calming down in WA, but things are still ramping up in New South Wales. They will ease off later this afternoon, but of course that risk of flash flooding remains. So Bridget and James will be keeping a close eye on that one.
Yeah, we will, Emma. A lot of people there in that region. Concerning news out of New South Wales. Well, breaking news out of Melbourne this morning, where there's been another attack on a tobacco shop, this time in the city's north. Stephanie Ferrier is on the scene for us in Coburg. Steph, what's happening?
Good morning, Bridget. Yes, this is the latest salvo that's been fired in Melbourne's ongoing tobacco wars. And you can see just how ferocious the blaze would have been behind me. And just the fact that this vape and a shisha store has been completely gutted. At the moment, it's for sale, but obviously the fire crews have been working very, very hard down here from 4:30 this morning when they got the call. They say that as they came here, it was already fully engulfed in flames. They had some 28 firefighters on scene using breathing apparatus to bring this blaze under control within about half an hour, and it's very fortunate that no one was inside at the time. This is what Paul Eckholt, who's the commander for Fire Rescue Victoria, had to say.
There were no injuries to any of the public and there were no injuries to firefighters, but it is a worry for Fire Rescue Victoria, the amount of these fires that are occurring, and we are worried that at some point it may involve injury to the public or firefighters. We do have apartments on top of some of these buildings, so there doesn't seem to be any concern for residents living around or above these premises.
And so that was Paul Eckholt, the commander from Fire Rescue Victoria. And you can see just the corrugated iron from the awning. Now, they've actually told me that means that this entire awning is at complete risk of collapse. So it means that this is a real hazard for people. They've blocked off this road. It has been deemed as suspicious, and this area is going to be closed for quite some time.
Yeah, I imagine it looks like a big clean-up effort is needed there at that shop. And Steph, it really just was a busy night all round for police and emergency services, because this wasn't the only incident last night.
That's right. There was also an attempted arson attack over in Paisley Street in Footscray in Melbourne's western suburbs, and police have said that there are actually two cars that went there. One of them rammed into a roller door and they had a jerry can. That was at a tobacco shop over there as well, but they ran off before any fire was lit. Now, police and the Lunar Task Force have already been investigating more than 60 fires across Melbourne as part of this tobacco war that's been going on, which is estimated to have cost more than $5 billion in lost tax revenue. And one of the kingpins, who was deported from Australia last year, is said to be orchestrating all of this from his base in Iraq now, and he is firebombing other premises that are controlled by his rivals. Now, we've heard already from Victoria Police just last month that they were actually putting landlords on notice and writing to them to inform them that their shops had been the scene of illegal activity, and that if they did not disclose that fact to insurers, then they could find themselves with insurance that's actually null and void if their store is firebombed. So really trying to enlist the landlord's help in fighting this battle, because police say that they simply cannot police their way out of this.
Yeah, it's an ongoing crisis in Melbourne. Thanks a lot, Steph, for the update.
Yeah, gosh, you've got a bit going on down here in Victoria. Well, let's head overseas because a major search is underway on a small Greek island for the celebrity British doctor Michael Mosley. The 67-year-old was last seen after setting off on a walk. The broadcaster popularised the 5-2 diet, which endorses intermittent fasting. He's also made several television series about diet, exercise and sleep.
Australia's first female Indigenous Supreme Court judge has questioned the exclusion of First Nations women on the government advisory body established as a rapid response to the nation's gendered violence crisis. Justice Louise Taylor says the exclusion is inexplicable given the high rates of victimisation that First Nations women suffer.
The United Nations has condemned a deadly attack on one of its schools in Gaza. Israel hit the school with what it described as a targeted airstrike on Hamas militants. Palestinian officials say 40 people were killed. UNRWA says it wasn't given any warning and was using the school to shelter as many as 6,000 people.
Let's take a quick look at the global markets for you now. All looking pretty good this morning. The Dow and the ASX are up and the Aussie dollar buying 66.7 US cents this morning. Gold trending up as well.